I talk about purpose. Like, what is your purpose? My purpose is to help people live long enough to find their purpose and to go out and do it. That's my purpose.
Something you said like that was very interesting was AI psychosis.
Oh yeah. Over a course of time, as you ask it more questions, right, it starts to do what the kids call glazing. Yeah, that's great. That's great. You're right. This is, no one else is thinking about this. And then it becomes this rabbit hole, and some people start to have psychosis. Some people, it's even led to some people, committing suicide, right? They start forgetting things, like more than you would know. And people always think it's, oh, I'm getting older. No, you're not getting older. You're actually starting to decline cognitively. And so it's important at that time to intervene.
Which is a reversible.
It's 100% reversible.
In a culture where most men wait for crisis before they change, Dr. Amos Ladouceur challenges us to lead before things break. A physician and a writer focused on human vitality. He bridges science, lifestyle, and accessibility. Through his work, he shows us that longevity isn't just luck. It's built through discipline, vigilance, and daily choices we make. From protecting the brain to confronting early age disease, this is about reclaiming the resource we all lose the fastest, which is time. This is a conversation about healthspan, leadership, and intentional living. Welcome to the Alpha Renaissance with Dr. Amos Ladouceur.
Thanks for having me, man.
What's up,
thanks
Doc?
for having me. Nice to see you,
How's it
man.
going,
Nice
man?
to meet
Good to
you.
see
Yeah,
you.
man. I appreciate it. Appreciate you inviting me on here. Yeah.
It's been a long time coming.
Long time coming. Long time
I feel
coming.
like we've heard each other's names
Right.
for a long time.
Exactly.
For like a long time, but we never ever.
We never crossed paths. Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you called me, I was like, man, I had to pick up the phone and see what you've been working on. I'm just so proud of you, what you've been doing with this platform. So when the opportunity to come here is just a blessing. I really appreciate it, man.
I get a chance to platform people like you.
Right. Exactly.
Who
Thank you, man.
Who really just have an interesting story.
Right.
Like how did you get into the space you're in now? Because you didn't originally start out in longevity.
No. So, I always tell people like Brooklyn, New York, immigrant family, and so I always wanted to be a doctor since I was 8 years old. And since I was a kid, grew up watching the Cosby Show. That was like very, very influential. Exactly. That was the seed that was dropped there. And so after I finished high school, went to NYU, went to Columbia. During my time in undergrad and at Columbia, I knew I wanted to do neurosurgery. So I wanted to be a brain surgeon. And so people like Dr. Ben Carson and Dr. Keith Black, who's here in Los Angeles, were the people that I actually looked up to. And so I come to LA, start doing neurosurgery. One thing leads to another. And what I really, really enjoyed was actually talking to patients. And you understand this because you're an so you get it. Our patients are asleep.
Yeah.
But when you're in an urgent care environment or in a primary care environment, you get to really get to know people and talk to them. And so I really enjoy doing urgent care. And so I met a couple of guys who were really successful, sort of businessmen in the medical space. And I decided I was going to start my own urgent care. And so where I wanted to start my urgent care was like Inglewood or Baldwin Hills. I wanted to be like in a Black neighborhood. And so I started my urgent care May of 2020, just as the pandemic had started. And my thought process at the time is that the pandemic would last about 3 or 4 months. When we get into the fall of 2020, I can sort of do the bread and butter urgent care, UTI, sprains, exactly, right? Yeah, I thought it was gonna knock it out, exactly.
I remember having travel plans, but I had a trip June.
Wow.
I had a trip June 2020 to Hong Kong.
Wow.
And I was like,
I had a trip planned for France. And my friends called me like, you think that trip's still gonna happen? I was like, yeah.
February. I was like,
exactly. You're gonna be good. It's gonna be done. We're gonna be done.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I thought the same thing was gonna happen. I thought this would be over with. And so, of course, we get into the fall, we get into the winter, and I'm just doing COVID testing. So I basically became a COVID testing site for 2 years. And that was cool. I enjoyed that, but still it wasn't what I thought I really wanted to do. So now it's about 2022, 2023, the pandemic is coming to an end, and now I'm starting to see patients come in for like regular stuff.
Yeah.
And people are coming to UTIs, the blood pressures are 180 over 120. People are coming in for sprains and, oh, do you have diabetes? What's your hemoglobin 186? It's 15. In other words, they have out of control diabetes. And a lot of them look like us. They were, I'm in a Black neighborhood. And when I would start having conversations with them, it just didn't make sense why these things that could be easily managed weren't managed.
Yeah.
And what happened was, as I'm going into 24, I'm still doing urgent care, I'm doing my thing. I had a patient of mine, and she was a journalist. And she, for a long time, all throughout the pandemic, was trying to get me to get involved with media and write an article. I mean, I just wasn't ready to sort of step out in that way. And then in January 24, I was like, okay, bet, this is the year where I'm going to start sort of like getting my message out, what I'm about, what I'm doing. And when I called her number, a man picked up. I'm like, hello? Is such and such here? And he was like, oh, that's my mom. She passed away. I was like, word? What do you mean? She's like, yeah, she, literally the month before, she went into Cedars-Sinai, right before the Christmas holidays, and didn't even make it to the New Year. She passed away from cervical cancer. And I was shocked.
Was she aware that she had cervical cancer?
She wasn't even aware.
Wow.
It just came out.
Nobody knew anything.
No one knew anything. And here's the part that crushed me. It was the fact that she had been in my clinic maybe like once every 3 or 4 months. She would come in for different things. I had never once asked her if she had a pap smear.
Interesting.
And I was like, whoa.
And this was these were the clinics that you had just started.
Exactly, right. So I got to know her, and she's coming in for a COVID test, or she's coming in for a UTI, she's coming in for abdominal pain, and I never once said, hey, have you ever had a pap smear? Have you ever had a colonoscopy? No, it was just straightforward urgent care, come in, out. It was very transactional in that nature. That's how urgent care is.
Yeah, totally.
And so I was like, whoa, we got to do something different. So at that point in time, I went to my team, my staff. I said, look, we got to change all of the intake forms to make sure we know, when did you get your last pap smear? When did you get a colonoscopy? And even though you may have been coming in for sinus infection, if I noticed that you didn't have a colonoscopy and you should have had one, I was going to have a 5-minute conversation with you. If this is the one time you're going to see a doctor this year, we were going to talk about preventative medicine. So that's when that sort of started. And then 6 months forward, I have another patient of mine. He's like 34, 35, married, very successful. And he calls me up and he says, Doc, I've been bleeding, having rectal bleeding for a year. I'm like, word? I'm like, all right, cool. Let's get you to the ER. This is not urgent care. It's more of an ER thing. Let's get a CT scan, see what's going on. That leads to a colonoscopy. And again, I'm thinking to myself, like, he has hemorrhoids or something benign. He's like freaking out. I'm like, bro, like, you're good. And then he FaceTimes me as he still has his gun on. After he had a colonoscopy, he said, bro, I got colon cancer. And I was floored. Because when I graduated from medical school in 2006 from Columbia, young people didn't get colon cancer. Young people didn't get cancer.
You can't even get a colon cancer screen.
Exactly. At 35.
Age. At 35.
You can't even get it at 35. Right. Yeah. The insurance wouldn't pay for it. So I was shocked. I was floored. And that led me down a path where I just started reading about these cases and these patients. And at that point, I was like, okay, I need to stop what I'm doing because people are dying unnecessarily. People are suffering unnecessarily. And that's when I wrote my first article. That was my first article on Substack.
And this is going to sound crazy, but like your urgent care clinics, are they doing well?
Right. Yeah, very well.
See, that's what happens.
Exactly.
Right? Like the clinics are doing well and the operation is smooth, but the patients aren't actually being taken care of. But there's this kind of like this thing oftentimes, I think, especially like with small medical practices, is like, hey, we're moving along just fine.
Exactly.
Like, we're doing okay. Like, I'm sorry, I can't catch everything.
Exactly.
And it's urgent care. Which your urgent care isn't meant
for
that.
And so the whole model is get people in and out in 10 minutes.
Totally. Yeah.
Come
like
in.
Like this extra 5 minutes. Like, I'm sure people hear you saying, yeah, I'm going to spend an extra 5 minutes to talk to my patient about, whatever other cervical cancer screening that they need. But that 5 minutes adds up, right?
Exactly. You have people waiting for you, and the whole point is get them in and out, right? Yeah. And I was like, this is not going to work. And so at that point in time, I changed the practice from urgent care to more preventative medicine. Mm-hmm. At this time, I'm starting to read about longevity. There's a doctor, Peter Attia, that wrote a book called Outlive.
Totally.
And
great
I'm
book.
Like, yeah, great book.
Excellent book.
And I'm like, okay, cool. This is where I want to go with it. Now, what's interesting at this time, as I'm like, on Instagram, on YouTube, all the people who are doing longevity don't look like us. And I was like, okay, it's important that we're part of that conversation. Because if people are improving the quality of their lives, or people are getting things like VO2 MAX, for example, which is the best indicator of longevity, and we're not doing those things, we're going to get left behind, right? And so it was important to me to to change the practice around in a more preventative focused practice, but at the same time to start writing about it. I started to understand the power of media. Like, it was cool talking to somebody one-on-one, but what you're doing, this platform where this goes out to the whole world, and talk about just simple things that you can do that can make the difference between dying unnecessarily at 51 versus living, to 100.
Yeah.
were things that I wanted people to know about. And so that's when I started using my pen. I've always had a creative bent.
Yeah.
And it was just a great opportunity to start writing and telling like narrative stories, not the straightforward like, oh, but tell stories that people can relate to, tell my own personal story. My story was, and I'll talk about one of my first Substack, I was 276 pounds.
Wow.
Right? Because I'm working, you know how it is. I'm in the hospital, I'm taking call, I'm building this practice. I'm 276 pounds. And I was in Aspen with my family, and I'm skiing down the slopes, and I fell. Didn't bust my knee, didn't injure myself. I could not get up, bro.
Whoa.
I could not get up.
Wait, where were you? Were you at the top of the mountain?
No, I just fell. Just fell. And I'm just trying to get up.
I was gonna say,
you're a snowboarder, so you know.
So I was going to say, you would have fell at the top of the mountain. They had to bring you down on the sled.
No. I wasn't injured. I was so overweight and so out of shape. Yeah. I could not get up. Yeah. And so my ski instructor tried to help. He could not get me up.
Wow.
And that was my come to Jesus moment. This is before I went into the longevity thing with the practice. This is my own personal journey. I was like, Amos, you got to do something different. And so I started doing things differently in terms of my diet, in terms of exercise, sleeping. I never slept before.
Yeah.
That was so important. And so telling those sort of personal stories, what I went through, and also being able to make it relatable to my patients, but also telling their stories so that wherever you are, whatever you got going on, you know that somebody else is going through it, but at the same time, get the information that you need to improve the quality of your life. And that's what was really, really important to me. That's what I was like, I got to do something completely different.
I feel it's, people have this weird, maybe not as much now as it used to be, but this whole weird relationship with fame. Like, oh, it's kind of like something dirty. Like, oh, I don't want it. Like, I'm a low-key person, as if that's honorable. But if you have a cause that really is meaningful, your cause needs to be famous.
Exactly, 100%. And I was one of those people. I was one of those people like, I didn't want to talk about it. I want to kind of just stay low-key, but there's a disconnect, right? So my people like yourself, some of my best friends that I went to med school with, they're at Cornell, they're at Harvard, they're at Columbia. And when I would have conversations with them, we're talking about the New England Journal of Medicine, we're talking about JAMA papers. But then when I would go to the clinic on a Friday morning, all the stuff that we were doing in the Ivy Towers, it wasn't reaching our patients at all. Yeah. So you did this great study and you know all this stuff about how to treat diabetes, you know everything about how to treat high blood pressure. But guess what? The people that need to know that information, they didn't know it because we're in conferences in Vegas, we're in conferences in Chicago, we're writing in these high-minded journals, which is good, but we're not getting the information to the masses, the people that need the information.
The evidence is not catching up to the practice at all.
Not at all.
Like it's actually not catching up. It's like leagues behind.
Years, decades even. Things that we knew 10 years ago. People still don't know today, for example, right?
It's amazing that happens in modern medicine today.
Right.
Like you have, like you can read the New England Journal of Medicine, and it was clearly like a study on risk for whatever procedure or whatever condition, and we're still not reacting to that information.
Exactly. Right.
Practice.
And so there's this big disconnect. And so I would have conversations with these specialists about, it would be like something simple as, someone comes in and their blood pressure's out of control and they were on one blood pressure medication. The dose had never been increased. I'm like, hey, what's up with your PCP? What's going on? Oh, well, he told me to keep watching it. But we know that, look, you give somebody about 3 months, if they're not improving, you can increase the dose or you can add a second, medication, and you need to get blood pressure control. So we know the studies, but it's not coming down in terms of the practice level, and more importantly, the patients aren't aware of it. And so by having these platforms where we can inform people and empower them, like, look, when you are 42 years old and you're an African-American man and your dad had colon cancer like my dad, your uncle had colon cancer like my uncle, your aunt has colon cancer like myself, you have a significant family history, you can advocate for yourself and ask for a colonoscopy even though you're not the age of 45, right?
Yes.
Giving them that tool and that information, exactly.
Yeah. So that's very important for people to know. If you have a family history of colon cancer, you need to mention that to your PCP or whoever so that you can get colonoscopy.
Exactly. 100%. Sooner than whatever sooner than it needs to be.
Sooner than 40.
Exactly.
You should
right.
get it at 35.
Exactly right. And so that's what I found to be like important to use these platforms to give people the information to inform. I have this thing where I say information is medicine.
Mm-hmm.
The more information you have, the more knowledgeable you are, it's a form of medicine. A lot of things that get left behind, a lot of things that don't get dealt with is because people don't have the information. They don't have the tools to advocate for themselves. That's very important.
What do you think that's about, though, when you have those patients that come in? Because I've seen that many times where I remember I was on call at a hospital one time and I was in-house. I got called for an emergency tooth abscess. And I go down there. It was a 45-year-old man who otherwise like seemed normal, but he had this toothache for days and he never went to go get it checked out. And he was down there to the point where he was going almost septic. I mean, he was just like salivating at the mouth. We had to emergently take his tooth out, like had to intubate him. He had a full-on surgery just to take it. Yeah, he had to get intubated, take it out because he was just salivating so much. And I asked the guy, I said, hey, why didn't you come earlier? He said, no, I didn't know I was supposed to come. I was like, how do you take care of your teeth? Because his teeth were all jacked. And I was like, how do you take care of them? He said, I don't really take care of them. And I was like, no one told you to ever take care of your teeth? He was like, no, I just kind of like don't really brush my teeth. And they just been decaying like this.
Right.
And it struck me because he wasn't like, he didn't, I don't know if he was, like houseless or anything like that, but he just seemed overall, just from general assessment, like it was for me for you, that's common sense. Like you tell your kids to go brush your teeth.
But I can't tell you in my community, Baldwin Hills, how many people are highly educated. They have great insurance, right? Sometimes if you have really good insurance, you actually can get really high quality care. Some of it is just fear, right? Some of that is based on history.
Totally.
Right? Some of that based on history, African American experiences, in medicine, right? And so some of it is legit. Like for example, the COVID vaccine, I had a lot of patients coming like, "Hey doc, I don't know what you think," right?
Yeah,
and that was like, that was legitimate, right? When you think about the Tuskegee syphilis experiments, right? So you got that history, and especially with men, you have a lot of men who just fear getting bad news.
Yeah. Well,
and so a lot of times it's demystifying, what that relationship should look like, and making people feel comfortable that you can come in here and talk to me about anything and know that you're going to be in a safe space and I'm going to advocate for you. That's really, really important.
It's just a lot of the unknown, right? You walk into a doctor's office, you walk into a hospital, and you don't know what the heck these people are talking about. They're saying words, they're asking you about your history and who's your primary care. And you're like, I don't have one. A lot of people and I do feel like that's the thing definitely in the Black community where it's a fear of just like, you don't want the bad news. That's what I think. I think that's what it is.
Right.
Like no one wants the bad news.
Right.
Like, it's enough bad news.
Exactly. Right. No, and that's
no one wants the bad news.
That's understandable. And that's why these platforms, in my opinion, are so important.
Yeah.
To sort of start to break some of those, demystify some of those thoughts and ideas and making it seem relatable and something that you approachable and that we can have these discussions.
Yeah.
One of the things, that I most recently spoke about is the fact that the life expectancy for a Black man in America is 71, which is 6 years shorter than it is for a white man. For a white man, it's about 76, 77. For Asian American man in America, it's about 83. It's about 12 years difference. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we're not getting screening on time. A lot of that has to do with that when we do have our illnesses, like a high blood pressure, for example, it's not managed properly. A lot of that is like lack of access, not having places where you can go and feel like you could be comfortable. And I think that when you see, for example, blood pressure screenings happen in barbershops and things of that nature or in churches, these are places where people feel comfortable, they feel safe. And I think that we as a medical community has to do a better job of being in all these different spaces that we as African American, especially the men, feel more comfortable where we can have those discussions, the discussions that we're having right now, that we can have them. And so when we look at that gap, a lot of it is from chronic stress, inflammation, and it's just being aware that, I wrote an article about sleep and my friend was like, man, sleep really affects your health. Like it does. If you're not getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night, you significantly increase your risk of getting dementia, Alzheimer's disease, heart disease, heart attack, stroke. And just that piece of information is so vital that people start thinking, okay, I need to get my sleep, for example.
It's from a systematic standpoint, right? Like I definitely, we know like the system has failed so many people, so many times, so many
Right.
groups throughout, especially this system. As great of a system as it is,
Right.
It has failed a lot of people. What can patients do from their perspective to just kind of unlearn the behavior? That because there's one thing where you have the system, I'm not sure if it's going to change or when it's going to change. I mean, every step that we take, this podcast is a platform for it to change. But in the meantime, right? How can that Black man unlearn his fear of going to the doctor, or his fear of getting a poor diagnosis about colon cancer or prostate? The prostate cancer for Black men, by the way, I mean, the risk is very high, but also I think for a lot of Black men, when they talk about it, the idea that something is wrong with your penis, that is, I don't know what it. It hits home for a lot. I think for men in general.
No, but yeah, it's a big deal, and I'm glad you mentioned. We're 2 times more likely, Black men compared to white men, to get prostate cancer, and we're much more likely to die when we do get the diagnosis of prostate cancer. So first of all, I tell people that your past, right, is a prologue. Your family history tells us what we need to be thinking about. So if you have a family history like cancer, we need to attack it. We need to understand your risk factors. If you have a family history of heart disease, we need to attack that. We need to think about that. And so I think the information and understanding that that's just something that we have to deal with, right? Prostate cancer is just something that we have to deal with. Well, how do we deal with it? Screening, right? Having the conversations with your primary care doctors, having the conversations with other men, with your brothers, with your fathers, with your cousins, with your best friends, with the guys that you play ball with on the weekend. Just having the spaces where we can have these sort of conversations is so important. And so one of the things that I started was a Black man's hike. So I thought, I was like cycling. I really got into cycling as, part of my journey when I had my come to Jesus moment after, being in Aspen and not being able to get up, was I started cycling and doing a Peloton, but all those activities were by myself. I would go up to Malibu and be by myself. And I went to an HBCU event. And when I went to that event, I saw the importance of like community. And I was like, wow, the only person that benefits from me cycling is me. And so I called up my barber, right? And I was like, hey, let's start a hike club. And we just started meeting on Sundays at 6:00 in the morning and just going hiking together. And at first we're having conversations about our kids, about our loved ones, finance. But of course, at some point we start talking about prostate cancer, colon cancer, heart disease, hypertension. It was cool to have a physician be part of that group, but you don't, right? You can say, hey man, I saw my doctor last week. You could be playing pickleball. You could be playing running ball with your guys, right? And meeting on a weekly basis, like, hey man, I had a colonoscopy to find a polyp. The doctor said I need to come back in 3 or 4 years. You need to get one, man. Like having those spaces, those community spaces where we're getting together on a consistent basis and being around each other and having all types of conversations is also something that's part of the healing process, right? We know that people who are part of community groups, they significantly decrease their risk of having early death, for example, by 50%. Just as equal as like quitting cigarette smoking. So if you're getting with a bunch of guys every, you're alpha, right? So if you're getting with a bunch of guys every Friday and you guys are doing whatever, going to the movies, going out for drinks, whatever it may be, that community that you guys have built with another is actually going to save your life. No, it's actually going to increase how long you live.
It's not about like if you go to that hike every week. What it is that like you get exposure and the conversation has happened. And even if you don't come to that hike for another month or 6 months or what have you, you've already had that conversation. You've had that exposure to where, hey, we're going to be this is going to be a space where we are very positive about talking about health.
And about everything, about our finances. One of the things that I sort of link is, we talk about, you hear all the conversations on Instagram, YouTube, generational wealth. Very, very important conversations to have.
Yeah, it's a great phrase.
Right?
I don't know what it means.
Right, exactly.
But it's like entrepreneur.
Right, exactly. Very, very important conversation. But I state, if we don't live long enough, if we're not healthy long enough, we can't build generational wealth to hand to the next generation. We can't build enough wealth to pass down. And so I always use example, Warren Buffett, over 90% of his wealth he got after the age of 65. So if we're down at 71, right? There's like you have like 6 more. You know what I mean? You lose, and he's like 90 something now, right?
Because I mean, even with this, like people are like, man, you'll hear people in their 40s like, it's too old for, I'm too old to do something. Like, I'm too old to start a brand. I'm too old to start a podcast. Like, I'm too old to switch careers or whatever. And it's like, wait, actually, when do you plan on dying? You plan on dying real soon? Like,
Absolutely.
hopefully you live for another 40 or 50 years. Good years. But the only way you're going to be able to do that if you are very aggressive about how your outlook is now.
Yeah, 100%. And I was having a conversation with somebody, and she's 46. And I won't mention, I say, hey, listen, on your 57th birthday, you're going to win the Oscar, right? And so I need to make sure that you're healthy enough and that you don't die at 54, because at 57, this is when we're going to get the Oscars. This is where I'm going to put the Tom Ford tuxedo on, and we're going to show up at the Oscars, right? No, when you're 45, when you're in midlife, you actually have another 50 really great years. We know the body can live up to 100, 115 years, right?
Well,
and so it may be 57 that you publish that bestseller. It may be 62 when that business finally goes, vertical. So we need to, and actually we find that people in midlife who actually start doing hard things like starting podcasts, writing, directing, going back to school, that's actually a longevity hack, right?
Well, it's a dexterity thing too, right? Like your capacity. And I want to talk to you about like cognitive reserve, because I know you're like big on that.
Right.
But like your capacity to do things at 40 years old, right? In your 40s, in your mid 40s, it's just greater, especially if you've been doing hard things in your 20s and 30s.
Exactly right.
Right. You have this CV, this entire resume of workarounds and framings, more importantly, that help you work through things, that help you work through conflict, that help you manage. Okay, I have a business. Well, this is not only do I have a business, but okay, I have a family. Not only do I have a family, but I have social groups and I have responsibilities. But actually, in the past, in my 30s and 40s, man, I've learned how to like manage each of these individually. Now I know how to manage them collectively.
You've learned so much.
Yes.
You've failed and gotten back up. And these things, if you apply them to new things, new adventures, new activities, what you bring, you're going to be so much more successful.
Totally.
But if at 48, you're getting a bad diagnosis, right? Or if you get cancer, whatever, it really shuts you down.
Yeah.
And so I had to remind her, no, you're actually young. 45 is actually young. And so we need to ensure that we're going to the gym, that we're eating properly, but we are trying new things, right? And that we're building new relationships, and that we take what we've learned in the 20s and 30s and apply them in our 40s and 50s and go on and do like some amazing things. Some of the best CEOs, they started their companies in their 50s and 60s,
oh, yeah,
right?
These guys are sharp. I mean, you hang around any of these Fortune 500 guys, like,
right?
They are like sharp as a tack. And they don't plan on dying anytime soon.
No,
like,
should they?
They're like, hey man, what's the latest? They know everything about the latest drugs,
exactly,
because they plan on living, and they don't look at themselves as being and like they've reached their peak. Like they're seeking more mountains to climb.
Exactly,
figuratively and literally.
And that's a longevity hack, like pushing yourself, stretching yourself. I talk a lot about goals. And not just setting goals, but setting like goals that are going to stretch you. So one of the goals that I set for myself is, going to France and climbing this like very famous mountain. Exactly.
Mont Blanc,
right. That Lance Armstrong and those guys have done in a certain time. But it's like, man, that's hard, right? Like that means that's going to take a lot of training, a lot of discipline, a lot of time. But in the process of pursuing something that stretches me, it makes me a better person. It makes me more alert. It actually works with, my cognition, 100%. Right? And so if it's building a podcast or start to write, anything that we do that stretches us, that forces us to go outside of our box. Look how we're having this conversation. It's because we both decide we're going to stretch ourselves and not be in a box. I'm a doctor, but we're gonna go outside of that and stretch what we're doing, and our days look different. Our relationships look different, and that actually has a benefit on your mindset, on your cognition, on your overall health. That's a big deal. So I tell people,
stagnation just hurts you, man. Because I always get the example, like for me, like anesthesia, I spent all this time like in training and in school and like to get to where I am. And by the time I had started businesses, by the time I had, had other just crafts, family, all these things, it became this much of my life, which is crazy. Now, it gave me all of these opportunities, but on a day-to-day basis of what stressed me out and what my focus was, It was this. It was
Right.
this. And it's because you're constantly adding capacity to your life.
And you have to.
You have to, because if anesthesia or whatever your day-to-day was the main stress in your life, and it gave you this much stress, by definition, when you add other things, that thing that block gets smaller, and the stress within it gets smaller as well. It just helps you deal and helps you balance your life when you add capacity.
And I always tell people, you have to do different things. Like if last year I was taking a certain route and I was doing a certain thing, my schedule looked a certain way, I want to kind of disrupt that a little bit, right? I want this year to have, I'm going someplace different. I'm having different conversations. My schedule looks different. This is on Sunday mornings, I'm typically at the hospital taking call. I'm here right now, right? Right. It's different.
Yes.
And so the more different it is, it opens up more doors, more opportunities, but it also gives you a different outlook on life, right? It makes you more, I'm hyped, right? I'm excited. You're excited, right? And as opposed to like the monotony of doing the same thing over and over again, and you fall, exactly right. You just fall into this, and it actually hurts you.
Yeah.
It hurts you mentally. It hurts you from a cognitive standpoint. It actually hurts you. So we want people to keep pushing themselves. And that's one of the things I love about what you're doing with Alpha Renaissance is how in this time of social media and AI, how do we become masters? How do we grow? How do we build?
Maintain our agency as human beings?
Right.
That's what this is all about. It's about maintaining our agency as human beings. Like this beautiful body and this beautiful mind that we have, how do we keep that sharp? How do we stay on point?
Right.
And get much more out of our lives instead of just being distracted.
Exactly.
Because really, and you know this as an entrepreneur, right? Like, if you don't understand sales, guess what?
You're not gonna do well.
Because you don't understand. Because if you don't understand the sale, you don't understand that you're just being sold to all the time. Like somebody sell it, you're being advertised to all the time. And when you understand sales, you look at everything in life from a totally different lens. Like somebody tells you like, oh my God, I love avocado toast. You're like, okay, well, who's selling it? What's the angle on it?
Exactly right.
And it is like, because you understand that, is this a distraction or do I really need avocado toast every day?
Exactly right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like what's the angle of that? So,
no, that's important. Like, I have so many conversations about being a consumer all the time, consuming. And when do you produce, right? When do you actually go out into the world and be your full self? And I think one of the things I'm most proud about what you're doing, and I'm like following your footsteps, is this idea that, okay, like we've accomplished this. We had these dreams when we were kids, and you're from Chicago, I was from Philly, and we were able to accomplish it. But then like, okay, what's next, right? What's the next thing? And just pushing us further. And as you do more of that, you become more of who you really are. Your inner sense of who you really are, you become more of that person. As I'm doing this, I'm becoming more Amos every day. Every time I write, even though I never liked writing. I was a math and science kid. But every day that I step out and I write an article, every day that I step out and I do something that is scary, that I have self-doubt about, how is it going to work out? I don't know what the outcome is going to be. I'm becoming more and more of myself. And I think, like you said, in this time of AI, we need to become more of ourselves. And that's by stretching and pushing and setting these stretch goals that really forces us to be who we really are supposed to be.
Totally. Totally. I totally agree with that. I mean, it's so important to just seize the moment, right? Because at the same time, it's like your life is going no matter what, right? Like I look at when I turned 40, I was like, man, if I live another 40 years, it's gonna go by just as fast as the first 40. I was like, dang. And I was like, how am I gonna look? And then when you start thinking about that, you're like, okay, I really need to capitalize on and not be distracted. Right. And you talk a lot too about like your cognitive reserve, right? And brain health. I think you said something like cognitive. I think I read it was like cognitive reserve is like your brain's retirement plan. Exactly. Yeah.
So what was interesting when we talk about Alzheimer's and we talk about dementia, they had patients who had passed away, right? So these are autopsies, and they would look at their brain, and they had so many neurofibrillary tangles and tau proteins. And usually when you have that, you should definitely have Alzheimer's, right? So they had a brain that looked like someone had Alzheimer's. But then that person, 80, 90 years old, was still working and still knew everything and still had their full capacity. And then there was these other autopsy samples where their brains looked normal. It didn't look like an Alzheimer's brain, but they had full-blown dementia. And what they realized, like the difference between the two, even though one brain you would expect, Alzheimer's, and the one you expect it to be normal, was that the ones who had normal cognition when they passed away, they kept on reading, they kept on learning, they had they kept on going to school, they learned another instrument in their 40s and 50s, they learned another language. And so this concept of cognitive reserve, there are things that you can do in your 40s and 50s, like reading, like learning a new language, like learning a new sport, a new musical instrument, thinking more deeply, having conversations, being part of a community group where we debate, we have a book club and we discuss book clubs. Those things that you're doing in your 40s and 50s, they're going to pay dividends later. Just like when you go to the S&P 500 and you invest $1,000 every month, and then at 65 you have this big, reserve to now, draw from. It's the same thing with the brain. Every time you read a book, so now I'm teaching myself French now. For example, I have some French background, but now I'm on Duolingo. I'm making sure I'm reading one book a week, actually, right? Yeah. And so it's so important, especially in this time, because I talk about this concept called cognitive offloading. When you're on ChatGPT and Chat is doing what it's doing, it's actually removing what you used to do in terms of your critical thinking skills, right? Every single time, remember how back in the day we knew everybody's phone number? Yes, every time you go on the phone and you just look up the person's name, you don't have to memorize the number, you're losing something. And so the way I like to make people think about it is, in the 1920s and 30s when we're still like agricultural and we're still industrial and people working, there was no need to go to 24 hour fitness. There was no need to go to the gym because you were getting that sort of workout when you went out into the field, when you went to work. But as we became more sedentary in terms of had office jobs, it was important. After 5 o'clock, you better go to the gym or you're going to have issues. It's the same concept now. As we allow AI to do more for us, as we allow all these technologies to sort of offload things that we used to do on our own, it's going to be just and more important for us to make sure that we're reading, we're learning, we're applying critical thinking skills, because our brain's gonna end up being mush if we don't.
So how do we do that? Because I see this like from a practical standpoint where you have like kids, right? Like well, not even kids. Let's just say college. You're in college, right? College students, right? It's certain things that Chat can do now, right?
Right.
That you say, for instance, if you need to learn how to debate, you need to learn how to like write a contract, right? Like you need to these are things that you need to personally know how to do, because sure, Chat can do it, but you have to check its work.
Exactly.
So then there's I don't know how it's a huge gap, and I don't know how we bridge this gap.
Right. So
where like it's going to be a lot. It's a lot of people that are. How do you get these skills basically that technology can do?
Right. So some skills are just going to die.
Yeah.
Right. So you know this as someone who's in the OR. 30, 40 years ago, clipping an aneurysm was a thing to do, right? So this is, I got really super technical. This is when someone has an aneurysm in the brain and it's ruptured, and now you want to go in there.
In the wall.
Right, exactly.
It wants to come out. It's kind of like a hernia.
So you have to do what's called a craniotomy. You take off the cranium and you go in and you put in a clip, right? And the reality is that it's actually a lot safer to do it through the groin, do it endovascularly. So now people just don't. The skill set of clipping an aneurysm is not what it was 30 years ago. The average neurosurgeon who 30 years ago would do it in their sleep couldn't do it now. So there are some skills that are just going to fade away. That's fine. But the brain, the mind, we can't allow it to happen. And so there are some things that Chat, generative AI are just going to take away.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
And you're not going to be able to fight. However, we still have to remain human. We still have to be able to think through things. We still have to be able to learn new information. And if we completely, without thinking, not being intentional about what we're losing, then we lose everything.
Yeah.
So as we're offloading, there's some things like, one of my friends, I write this article, he was a software engineer. He coded all day long. And his boss was like, listen, if you guys aren't using these AI tools, I give you guys a year. You're done. And he was like, dude, I've written code in like a month. And I was like, this is when it's time to open up the physics textbooks from back in the day. This is when it's time to do some calculus, right? This is a time to actually be intentional. And just like we put time aside to work out, to put time aside every day, an hour to, whether it's reading, whether it's playing chess, to sort of maintain
keep it
that.
going, because
right, you have to.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
It's so important.
I feel like because it's just super easy just to watch generative AI. Like,
do all of it.
Well, like to entertain you.
Oh, exactly.
Because I mean, I don't know. I've been on TikTok, like, well, especially like with this podcast, I'm on TikTok all the time.
Right.
And it's so good. like it's so good. And right now they have all of these videos that keep popping up. It's funny to watch. And before, these videos, you could tell, like, it was
now it's harder to tell.
6, 7 fingers. Like,
right,
not it.
Exactly.
Now it's hard to tell, and they're entertaining because they're able to stitch together scenarios that would never happen in real life.
Right.
So it's actually, I can see how this is going. Like, this is becoming an art form where, this is what I want to give my attention to. It's hilarious. This can never happen in reality.
Right, exactly. But, you have a subgroup of people who get so into whether it's social media or generative AI, and it leads to depression, anxiety, in some cases, what we call AI psychosis, where people are actually losing it. So we have to, as we get these new tools, there needs to be some sort of control about, how much is enough, how much is too much, and having these sort of conversations. Because, if you're young, like I tell my friends all the time, like if you have a young lady in your home, 15, 16 years old, we know social media makes teenage girls depressed.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So you have to be able to understand, you have to still be able to socialize, know what's going on, but there has to be some kind of a limit, because there are some dangers with some of these tools that are really, really great, but in teenage girls, it tends to cause depression.
Totally.
We know, increases suicide in some groups, or causes like psychosis in some other groups. So there needs to be some, as we're, taking on more of these tools, having these conversations. And I think that's what you're doing is so great. It's like, let's have these conversations now and not wait 10 years from oh, wow, we lost a whole generation to generative AI because we weren't being thoughtful and mindful about it.
And we know, I think one thing too that's great about being a millennial is we are 1 foot analog.
Well, you're a millennial. I'm not a millennial.
You can fake it like
yeah.
But even like Gen X, right?
Right, yeah, sure.
Like we had to bridge the gap,
exactly,
right, between analog. We still bridge the gap between analog and the digital world, right? And that allowed us to have this perspective. I mean, for me, like, seeing what's going on, because I saw a world before you saw a world before all the digitization, right? So it gave you incredible perspective on behavior and how that changed, right? So I mean, even something you said like that was very interesting was AI psychosis.
Oh yeah. So, and you're gonna hear more about this. So generative AI is essentially a tool where it does a very good job of knowing what the next sentence should be, or what the next paragraph should be. So when you go on ChatGPT or you go on any of these tools and you say, hey, I want to know about, colon cancer, it kind of knows what the next colon cancer is, the third highest, it'll start spitting that out. What it'll also do is it has a good sense of, over a course of time, as you ask it more questions, right, it starts to do what the kids call glazing. It wants to make you happy, because if you're happy, if it tells you, oh, this is great, that's a great question, like, keep that up. You're going to come back and ask it more questions, right? It's kind of built into that, right? The kids call it glazing.
I didn't know they called it glazing.
And so what would happen is you have a group of people, very, very small group of people, but we're starting to hear about this, where they're like, hey, man, I have this theory about what the world is like. And they would start talking to Chat. And Chat would be like, yeah, that's great. That's great. You're right. This is, no one else is thinking about this. You're the only person in the world that has this viewpoint. And then it becomes this rabbit hole, and some people start to have psychosis. Some people, it's even led to some people, committing suicide, right? And so it's real. It's very, very small. It's like a few, cases here and there that we're starting to, be reported in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. But it's a real thing, because what the tool does is it kind of gets a sense of what you're looking for, and it gives it to you. And it never says like, no, like, this is crazy, this doesn't make sense, no, stop it. It keeps going on. And there are some people who are like, you'll just have like days and days that they're on there, and they have these theories about how the world really works. And that causes, they basically to go into like, some psychotic, some psychosis.
I can imagine. Man, do you remember from school, probably med school, where they show that cat, and it's the woman with schizophrenia. You remember that?
Yeah.
And so like they had this cat, and she draws the cat like day one of a schizophrenic break, and it's just a cat.
Right.
Day 2, a little bit more color. Day 10, the cat looks like a demon.
Right.
Day 20, this cat looks like a demon from Hades. Right? And that was that person just using their pen and just drawing and like draw the same. And they're telling that person, that's schizophrenic, to draw the same cat over and over.
And you're seeing how they're declining.
Now what? ChatGPT? Well, let's just say chat or any AI bot. Imagine what that cat will look like. Typing that hat. And it's giving you positive feedback.
Positive feedback, no matter what you're saying.
Because it doesn't know necessarily if you're psychotic or not.
Oh, no, it doesn't. And it's just...
It can guess, maybe. But
it may have some insight. There's been conversations with, Sam Altman about what's going on with some of this stuff, right? So we won't get into that. But no, the reality is that in a very small group of people, that can definitely happen. But I think in the larger context is the cognitive offloading and a cognitive decline. I wrote a story about a patient of mine. She was a very proud African-American woman, highly educated, and in her mid-50s, she started noticing she was having difficulty with her memory. And unfortunately, no one actually came in at that time and worked with her. There are things that you can actually do to help someone who's starting to have what we call mild cognitive decline. And those things weren't done. And so by the time she was like in her mid-60s, she was like full-blown demented, right? And she knew it. Like, it was so sad to see that. And so I'm just afraid. We already know there's going to be a significant increased risk of Alzheimer's just because of things like obesity, because of things like diabetes. I'm just afraid now adding something else that's allowing us to offload our cognition, those numbers are just gonna explode, especially in certain communities. So it's just something to be thoughtful about, to think about, and make sure. And this is why we have these platforms, right? To sort of talk about them so people are aware of them. That's very important.
So cognitive decline is, I'm thinking like that's when you're on a path to like an Alzheimer's, right?
Exactly.
What we're talking about, like what would be like a chronological decline, right?
Right.
Because of your age.
Right. So I think for example, what we found is that in patients who end up developing dementia, so now they're in their 60s and 70s, they have full-blown Alzheimer's dementia. If you go back to when they were 55, they started doing weird stuff with their money. And so they would start mismanaging their money. And so there are different things that we'll start to see early on that kind of clues us on that there's already been a decline in their cognition, right? They start forgetting things like more than you would know. And people always think it's, I'm getting older. No, you're not getting older. You're actually starting to decline cognitively. And so it's important at that time to intervene.
Which is a reversible.
It's 100% reversible.
Decline.
Reversible things like, for example, sleeping. You have to get 7+ hours of sleep a night. Reversible in terms of like changing your diet, doing a more Mediterranean diet, more fruits, more vegetables, less things like red meat that causes inflammation, less things like sugar, saturated fats. So your diet can also, the other one that's big is moving, like walking, running, cycling, going outside and getting like 45 minutes of exercise on a consistent daily basis. And the fourth thing is having a really strong social network. 4 to 5, 6, 7 people that you meet with on a consistent basis, that you're having conversations with, that you're congregating with, that you feel that you're safe with, that you can tell them what issues you got going on. That actually can slow down and in some cases reverse cognitive decline. And so that's why the hiking was so important. Like these are the sort of things that we can do, these tools. So if you look at populations like, for example, this concept of blue zones, whether it's like Loma Linda is a blue zone, there are places in Japan that are blue zones. They have really strong social networks. And not only do these people live to be long in their 90s and they have 100, but they're able to maintain their cognition all throughout that time. So it's diet, it's movement, it's sleep, and it's community engagement that actually slows down and reverses cognitive decline.
So you see this digitization effect as well, because one of the greatest epidemics right now is the loneliness epidemic, really affecting men more than anything. I mean, these young men, it's men that are in their 30s, they don't have a best friend. They don't have they don't have a friend. Like 50% of them in some studies.
Right.
I mean, they're not having sex.
Yeah.
They're not having sex.
That's a huge deal. And what's sad is you're talking about people in their 20s and 30s, right? You think it'd be more like later, right?
Yeah.
No, we're talking about 20 and 30-year-olds. You know, when you talk about, there's so many things that were in place. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, fraternities and sororities on a college campus. Things like church. You know, things like bowling league. Somebody wrote this really cool book was written about, like, you know, exactly, totally. Right? You know, no one bowls anymore, bowling alone. And what happens, these sort of tribes, these communities, they really kept you engaged, right? And so if you are prone to depression, if you are prone to suicide, if you are prone to even psychosis, having to show up every Sunday for a church service, or having to show up every Saturday, you know, to be part of a basketball league, or every Friday night to be part of a bowling league, really does a lot. And in those friendships, we get old together,
well,
right?
You see those people that, like, you know, that person at the church or the mosque or the community center or whatever, like, they show up for every event.
Right.
They're there during the week.
Right.
Like, they are there. And you think about it, that's what they have.
Right.
And it probably keeps them going.
It definitely keeps them going.
It definitely keeps them going.
So with the loneliness epidemic, being lonely is equivalent to being a cigarette smoker. And we all know how bad cigarette smoking is, what it does in terms of increasing risk of cancer, heart disease. Loneliness is like being a cigarette smoker, right? It's that bad for your health. We're not made to be alone. And so when you have this epidemic of loneliness, and then people are just, of course, you have these devices now that allow you to sort of feel like you're engaged, because you're like, either you're playing a video game by yourself, or you're doom scrolling, you know, at 2:00 in the morning, but you're not having face-to-face contact with people on a consistent basis, to the point where people don't even know how to date no more, like you were saying, right? People don't know how to have a conversation with somebody, meet them at a bar, ask them out for a date, be able to go on a date and be able to, like, have a full range in terms of that relationship.
I mean, one of my buddies, he owns a club, and he told me that. He's like, yeah, like, young people don't dance together. Like, the girls and boys don't dance together. They said they sit in little groups and they dance on their phone. They dance with each other, in their group. And I was like, that's weird.
Right,
like,
exactly.
You know, like, you would think that you would go to a social place to be social with people that you didn't come with. That's the whole point.
Exactly.
That's how we thought about it.
Right, exactly. But that's why I love these run clubs. Yeah. I love what Gunna's doing right now, for example. Because it forces people to get together on a consistent basis. They're actually doing exercise, they're actually running, doing healthy, but they're coming together. Like, they're engaging, they're interacting. They're not home by themselves, either on the treadmill or worst, you know, on social media. They're, you know, on a fairly consistent basis, they're getting together, they're running together, they're hiking together. So I think that we need to promote more of those sort of things. And I think absolutely. That's so important. Yeah.
When you talk about cognitive decline, what does brain fog come into that picture? Because, you know, you can see your 30s and your 40s and you can start to feel something, right? Where, like, maybe it's like your reflexes, like, or just like how your physical body feels. Like, sometimes there's this thing where you may feel like, hey, I wasn't as quick on the draw as I usually am on certain things, right? And I hear this from a lot of patients. I hear it from just friends and in general. How does one differentiate between that type of decline versus the decline that leads you on the road to Alzheimer's?
Right. So I would go out and say, when that's happening, that's a form of decline. I would not brush that off. It started happening to me. Like, things that I just used to come so quickly, names, people that I remembered, places, times. I was like, hold up. Exactly, words, right, exactly, right.
Like words that you know.
When that's happening, that's what's going on. And it's time to stop. One of the things that's unfortunate in medicine is we don't have, everybody know what their blood pressure is, hopefully. Everybody know what their weight is, hopefully. Everybody knows what their cholesterol is, what their hemoglobin 1AC is, but we don't have a way of consistently knowing where am I on the cognitive scale, right?
Yeah.
When you go in and you see your doctor on a yearly basis, you're not getting a cognitive test.
Yeah.
Everyone should be getting a cognitive, especially as you get to mid-40s, to see where you are, something that is a data that is consistent. This is where you were a year ago, this is where you are now.
Yeah.
When you start to have those things happen to you, which they were happening to me, that's when you need to say, okay, I need to get more sleep. Yeah. I need to eat better. I need to move more, and I need to find those things. Like, so I started opening up my calculus book, physics books. I'm learning French. Let me learn chess.
Math
you actually
so
didn't have to
brain.
challenge yourself so that you can slow that process down. It's not the time to blow it off or think that, no, it's real and it's not normal and it's not okay. You need to do something about it. That's so important.
It definitely is a deficit, and like I think too, you can feel like these deficits. But my dad, he had to have like some cognitive tests, right? And just because he's in his mid-70s, so I was just actually like FaceTiming with him while he was in the office doing them. And man, the old man did okay.
Right, good.
I was shocked.
That's great.
They were doing like, and I was like, wait, I don't know if I missed out. But it was easy. It took like 5 minutes.
Right.
It's just a quick, ask you questions, see what your recall is, and see how your memory is functioning. It wasn't that bad, but it was like really good to do. I was doing it on the phone with him.
It's important. And unfortunately, a lot of times when patients are having those tests, they don't remember the year anymore. Who's the president, their address, and the family members are shocked. Like the kids, like, whoa, what's going on, Mom? What do you mean you don't know who the president is? It's clear. Anybody know who the president is?
Objectively,
right, exactly, right. And so, and I think even as family, we say, oh yeah, Mom's getting old. No. It's time to intervene, to go see a doctor, get a cognitive test, and start thinking about things that you can do. So some of the most simplest things that you can do is get 6,000-7,000 steps a day. So I tell my parents, I tell my dad.
For your cognition.
Oh yeah. Like get up, especially in the early morning when the sun is starting to come up, and just go for a walk. 6,000-7,000 steps a day will help to preserve your cognition. And these are simple things that you can do, right? And so, it's one of the things that I just talk about all the time. I think it's important.
Even with exercise, right? Like people, think that we're supposed to go to the gym for like an hour and a half.
Oh yeah.
Workout. Like you really don't need that much, right? Like you don't need an hour. You probably just need like 30 minutes.
Right. Exactly.
How many days a week? Not 7.
Exactly. Right. No, this was. I really love the book. Outlive, and
it's a great book.
Exactly. And I have my Substack where I talk about this.
Yeah.
Exercise is better than taking any blood pressure medication.
Yes.
Exercise is better than anything a doctor can offer you, but you have to do the right type of exercise. And so we call it what's called zone 2 endurance. And zone 2 endurance, for people who don't know about it, it's when your heart rate is high enough that you can still have a conversation, but you're sweating, right?
Yes.
And you have like these different zones. It's like a zone where you burn a lot of fat. And now with the new Whoops and the Apple Watches, they'll actually tell you when your heart rate you're in zone 2. And you need to do that about 30 to 45 minutes a day. So that could be cycling, that could be in your Peloton, that could be, going for like a hard hike, light jogging. And you can still hold a conversation. You need to be doing like 3 or 4 times a week. The other big thing that you need to be doing, which people find it easy to do aerobic exercise, it actually makes you feel good, is strength training.
Strength training is so good.
You have to strength train, especially in the 40s and 50s. 2 to 3 times a week, and it has to be heavy weights. It has to be heavy weights, and you're doing about 45 minutes of that. And then once a week, you want to do what's called HIIT, high intensity interval training, where you're just going nuts. You're just going up and down a flight of stairs. You're getting your heart rate up, like, to 180s, 190s, your max heart rate. And you do that more like 15 to 20 minutes once a week. If you do it too much, you actually start to have the opposite effect. You start to have too much inflammation. But doing the right exercises consistently is so important. One of the books that I also recommend is a book called Atomic Habits. I don't know if you've read that one.
Yes,
it's
a great book. Yeah.
It's like, how do you start a good habit?
Yeah.
It's doing something really easy consistently. So I tell my patients, if you're going to go to the gym, the first week, just put your gym clothes on, drive to the gym. Don't even go inside. Just drive to the gym. And then when you get into the gym, just do 10 to 15 minutes of the treadmill zone 2. Right. And then slowly, as that becomes more of a consistent, then you can sort of raise the intensity of it. But consistency matters more than intensity. So what we tend to do, okay, I'm gonna, I had one of my patients, like, look, I'm gonna go to the gym today, I'm gonna work out, do an hour, like, bro. All I want you to do is go for a walk. Go for a walk. 10, 15 minutes. I tell so many people and do that every day.
Walk. Like,
exactly.
Especially if you're overweight. Right. Like you may not want to go to the gym just yet. Like you may just want to get your cardio up, get your heart rate pumping, build some discipline, walk around. If you can walk around your neighborhood for 15 minutes, you can start going to the gym. You'll be able to do it. But you might be setting yourself up for failure by setting this very high goal going to the gym, you go there, you don't know what the heck is going on, and then you don't feel good.
And sometimes it can be dangerous.
Yeah,
And you notice,
totally.
you notice, as anesthesiologists, if someone's like severely overweight, 400 or 500 pounds, and I had a patient that was that heavy, and I said to him, like, do not go on a treadmill, 12%. I just want you to walk.
Yeah.
Because if you overexert yourself, you can have a heart attack.
Yeah.
You can actually go into cardiac arrest, right?
100%.
So we need to get enough weight off and get your body to work itself up enough that you actually can tolerate what you're about to put your body through. Yeah. So having those conversations with doctors are important. In that book, Outlive, he talks about the concept of VO2 max. And I actually started doing that on my patients. I would go and, I take them someplace in El Segundo, get them on a treadmill, and they got the mask on. Yeah. And I want to know, first and foremost, what can your body tolerate? Yeah. And then we slowly, by changing your habits, walking, hiking, cycling, easy things for you to do, we do like intermittent fasting where we start slow, where we'll stop eating at 8 p.m. and you don't eat again until 8 a.m. Do like a 12-hour fast.
Do you see any differences with the sexes with intermittent fasting?
There is a difference. Oh man, there's a difference. Man, and I'm still learning the science behind it. With men, when they do it, they start to see the weight come off quickly. And women always say, man, I did it, but there's something that's different about the biology where the intermittent fasting, you see much, in my opinion, in my practice, you see much faster results in the men than you do the women. And at first I didn't want to admit it. Oh, biology, we're the same. No, we're different.
Yes.
And so what I tell my female patients is to be patient. And in addition to that, I really encourage them to do strength training.
Absolutely.
And then,
so good for women.
Right, I do
especially
something
with the risk of osteoporosis.
Exactly.
Yep.
I get a DEXA scan that looks at their body sort of like fat distribution, how much muscle they get, because all of us are really, obsessed with how much we weigh. And I'm like, no, it's not about the weight. It's about your body's distribution of fat, muscle, and water. And so if I know how much visceral fat you have, I know how much protein, amount of muscle you have, I can give you a program where we're going to decrease fat, visceral fat, and increase the mass. And that might mean that your weight doesn't drop quickly or immediately, but if you have more muscle, we know that's a healthy in terms of metabolism for you.
VO2 max should be, can you think of, this is crazy, right? You walk into an office and they just take your vitals and they say, okay, based off of this, you're healthy or not.
Right. Right.
We need further follow-up or you can go home.
Right. If I'm just going to keep it real. If you're walking to a practice, especially someone our age, 40s and 50s, and you don't know your VO2 max, because it's not being tested, you don't know what your body fat distribution is, how much visceral fat you have. If you don't know where you are in terms of your cognition, then these are things I want you to start thinking about. And some of these things like DEXA scans, it's like $50. You can find it someplace locally. Definitely have a doctor that understands how to analyze it and tell you what to do about it. VO2 max is becoming more and more popular. You can go into some places and find some doctors who are doing it. I'm one of the physicians that does it. Then cognitive tests, just being aware. I had a patient of mine and she felt like she was losing her hearing. And she kept on telling her PCP, like, hey, I think I need a hearing test. Like, nah, you're tripping. I'm like, no. Hearing loss is a risk factor for dementia. So I was like, you're not tripping. You need to get a hearing test. And if there's a real hearing loss, you need to get a hearing aid. And there are ways of doing it now. I know, when we're young, we don't want people seeing a hearing aid, but it's so important for your cognition. If you have hearing loss, you're increasing your risk of dementia significantly. So cognition, knowing what your body fat distribution is, your body composition is, and knowing your VO2 max are very important numbers, in addition to knowing what your blood pressure is, what your hemoglobin 1AC is, and also what your cholesterol is as well. So giving people the tools and information so they can go out and seek it and they can start advocating for themselves. It's so important.
On a daily basis, like for you, like someone that's very knowledgeable, a physician that's in a longevity physician, how do you what's your routine? Like, what do you like to do?
That's
like
a good
weekly
question.
routine, monthly routine?
Yeah. I'm gonna tell you.
What tests you like to get?
So the first thing I do every morning is I go for a walk. And so crack of dawn. So, for us right now, it's about 6:30 in the morning. And I'll go someplace very peaceful. It'll either be, a hike that I'll do at Griffith Park, or there's this place now I like to go called the Hollywood Reservoir. It's like this like man-made lake, and I just go around for about an hour. I like to start my day with that. And the reason the reason for that's so important, there's so much, when the day starts, whether you're a physician, you're a lawyer, you work in finance, whatever you're working in education, when the day starts, the stress, it just starts coming.
Yeah.
And so I tell everyone, start the day for yourself where you have time to reflect. You have time to sort of, just bring everything down a notch. You get your 7,000 steps. Maybe you're doing some running. So right now I'm trying to, build up to do a 5K. So I'm doing a walk run type of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that within the next few months, I can actually be able to go do the whole 5K. And
it's great that you're actually living it, right? Like, you're not just prescribing this
you
to
gotta
people.
live.
You are like, I need to change my life. And then I'm going to go through these changes, and I'm also going to advocate for these changes.
Right.
And you're going through, so what your patients are going through.
I'm going through it.
Because you're actually going through it.
Yeah. I lost like 30 pounds.
It's crazy.
And not just 30 pounds, but building muscle. So then, once I do that, then I go, I get to work, and then I'm doing intermittent fasting. So I typically stop eating about 8, 9 o'clock at night, and I don't have my first meal till about 11 or 12 o'clock in the morning, 12 noon. So I'm not eating again until 11 or 12. When I do eat, it's fish, it's white meat like chicken and turkey. It's as much as fruits and vegetables, as you can imagine. And I've cut down on red meat. I only eat red meat once a week. I've cut down on saturated fats. I've cut down on ultra-processed foods. Ultra-processed foods is one of the worst things that ever happened to us as Americans. I can't emphasize that enough. So no ultra-processed food. I try to limit mine to 0.
How do you get protein intake?
Protein is going to be from fish.
Foods.
It's going to be
oxymoron of all of this.
Fish, chicken, turkey. I do a protein shake because it was impossible for me to get the protein in.
To get that much,
low
like
fat
100
milk
to 200 grams of protein.
I need about 175 for what I'm trying to accomplish. So I have to do the protein. I do about 100 grams of protein from protein shakes. I gotta keep it real.
Yeah.
I would tell my patients, I tried it, just stuff it. You just can't do it.
Like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
You just can't do it. Right. I just couldn't
do it.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's insane. And then it's expensive too.
Oh yeah, that and the constipation.
Right, exactly.
I remember when I started when I would hit my protein intake, especially when I was like lifting weights and like bodybuilding, I would be so constipated.
Oh yeah.
I mean, because my body was like, "What are you doing?
Exactly.
Stop."
Yeah. So it's the protein shakes that helps me out with that. Yeah. But I stay away from anything that's ultra processed. I tell patients, if you go into a grocery store and you need to like take your 2 thumbs to open it up, or you look at the back of it, and it's not real food. It's this color dye, that color dye. Yeah. Stay away from it as much as you can. And then 2 or 3 times a week, Nike now has a strength training gym, and I started doing strength training.
Oh, great.
Because it was like, okay,
with a
cool.
trainer, without a trainer?
Without a trainer.
Okay.
But what we say is that you want to do heavy weights. So you're doing like squats, you're doing deadlifts, you're doing like, everything to sort of get as much heavy weights as possible, because you want to build muscle. And with the protein and the strength training, you're building muscle. And now I'm trying to read 1 book a week for my cognition. I'm on Duolingo learning French, because the cognition is important. If you have the body, but you don't have the mind, you don't have the brain, you're not going to be effective.
Yeah.
You're not going to be effective. And so those are the sort of things I do on a daily, once a week.
How do you have time for this?
I make time for it.
Yeah.
Now it's a little bit easier for me because I can control my schedule. I got to be real.
Yeah.
Right. One of the things, it's funny because like when you're like, I'm on my Apple, laptop, I'm at Erewhon writing about not eating ultra processed foods. And one time I walked into McDonald's, and I saw this young family, and they were buying like Big Macs, and I started looking down on them. But then I realized, like, man, for $20, she just bought like 2,000 calories.
It's cheaper,
right? Whereas when I go to Erewhon, I spend $100 to get 50 calories, right? And so there's definitely having more means, having more money does give you more time.
Yeah,
that's just the reality of it, right? These are what we call the social determinants of health, like more education, living in better neighborhoods that have better grocery stores, having more money, being more educated. Those things actually affect your health. So I am privileged, and I had to sort of have that moment with myself and be like, hey, bro, like. Yeah. You're being able to go to Erewhon and having an hour in the morning. Some people have to get out their kids, they gotta drop them off. That's just not realistic. But as much as you can, get out, get to the gym, spend some time reading, spend some time with your family.
Chip away at
exactly,
it.
chip away at it.
Yeah.
You know, it helps to deal with like stress and chronic inflammation. So I'm privileged, and I had to understand it. And the reason why that's so important is because we talked about systems. If we're going to have honest conversations about health in this country, we need to pay people enough so that they can buy healthy food.
Yeah.
Or we need to make healthy foods accessible enough and, you know, affordable enough that everybody can have it. The reality is that if you live in certain neighborhoods or if you make a certain amount of money, you just can't afford to buy the things that are good for you. And so from a system standpoint, that conversation needs to happen. So when I started noticing that, I'm actually using this opportunity to talk about that right here in this moment right now.
You know, one thing that happened was we had in Inglewood in Chicago, right? We had this Whole Food that came to market, right? And the Whole Food was subsidized. They built it. It was beautiful. It was great Whole Food. No one ever came. Like every time I would go into this Whole Foods.
Was it affordable?
It was subsidized. I will say that. Like not regular Whole Food prices,
right?
But not like your multi those big grocers, not like that either, right? Like a little bit in between,
right?
But it was just no one was ever there, man. I was like, and it ended up closing.
Oh wow!
Right? And I was just like, this is a huge travesty because the quality of the products were so good,
right?
But like never.
But you know what's interesting about that, and when you talk about Inglewood, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to be in this space, and I love what you're doing, is that. And I don't know what happened with that situation. I wonder when they were thinking of designing it and building it, did they have conversations with people in the community and ask them what they needed, what they wanted, and make sure they had their input? One of the concepts that I talk about is wellness may look different for us than it looks for other people.
100%.
So, if you're in Chelsea, you're in West Hollywood, right? It might look like a yoga studio.
Yeah.
But for us, it might be like a boxing gym with the hip hop class, right?
Yeah.
And so it's important that when people come into our communities, that they're making sure that they're engaging with the community and knowing what the community needs are, and not just, this is good for you.
Yeah.
Because it may look different for us.
Yeah.
Wellness for us may look like a hip hop boxing class and not a yoga class.
Well, also,
right?
I will say the foods that were there, like I always thought about it. I just wanted to hear. I've always asked people what they thought about it because, like they had stuff like, bruschetta, like people in that neighborhood,
right, exactly.
They're not eating that, like
exactly.
Care.
But that's not.
But it was so much. It was that too. It was so much of that food. But I always like it's a case study and. Okay, so you have healthy foods, but are they the right type of healthy foods?
Right.
You have access, but is it the correct type of access?
Right. And so you have to have people in the community involved when you're doing those things because they know. Every group has their wellness, right? Every group has their way of staying healthy.
Yeah.
And so we can't, when you come into my practice, it doesn't look like a regular medical practice. It looks like a practice was built by a Black physician for our Black patients, right? And so it looks different.
How does that look?
When you walk in there, there's a picture of Jackie Robinson's first baseball game.
Okay.
When you walk in there, there's a picture of Eartha Kitt and Nat King Cole together. I want to show her that Black love, right? So it looks different. And it looks like a place that, like, well, I never went to a doctor's office and saw this, right? Because it's different. And so we have to, when we go into these communities, we have to allow the communities to decide, make a lot of those type of decisions. We educate. This is what I think. This is what I know. Yeah. This is the data. But we let them sort of be the ones that sort of take ownership. And so I wonder in that situation, because I see that a lot. I see a lot of times people come into like certain communities, immigrant communities, Black communities, Hispanic communities, all types of different communities, and they think that they're going to tell them what this is supposed to look like. And it's like, nah, I don't want it to look like that. Yeah. That doesn't work for me. Right. And so, it's sort of the things that we have to think about health and longevity. What is I know what longevity looks like, with Peter Attia and like Huberman, right? Yeah. What does it look like when Dr. Ladouceur does it? It's going to look a little different. It needs to look different because, first of all, we have different problems and we have different ways of dealing and solving those problems. And we actually have tools
Lots
on
of
our
tools,
own
yeah.
that we can utilize
totally.
that are so important.
Totally.
Yeah. So that's what I think is important. Now I was wondering if in that situation, how did that go out? Right?
Yeah, I don't know. It just used to always boggle my mind because I would go there. I'm like, man, I can't believe these prices.
Right. Exactly. Right. Yeah.
I was like, it's like they have seafood was amazing, everything was amazing, but it just wasn't me access, and that was always.
And the other concept too, and I saw this when I went to Columbia. I was a student. I was a med student at Columbia, and Columbia's in Harlem. They call it Morningside Heights, but Columbia is in Harlem. Mm-hmm. And I would tutor kids on 125th Street and Broadway, and the main campus, essentially is 125th, but the main campus on 116th Street is like 9 blocks, right? Short blocks. Yeah. And what boggled my mind is that none of the kids on 125th Street ever came on 116th Street. They never came on campus. Like, guys, this is your neighborhood. This is your school. Like, no one's going to stop you at the gate to actually come on campus. You can throw football on the lawn. But even though it was in their neighborhood and it's this like august, prestigious academic institution, because they didn't feel like they had ownership, that it was for them, they stayed away from it. Yeah. And so when I was growing up in Brooklyn in New York City, I was like, oh no, all of New York, the museum, and then my parents, they put that, instilled that in me. 100%. The Brooklyn Museum is mine, the MoMA is mine, the Met is mine, the Opera is mine, Columbia is mine, NYU is mine. And so we also have to empower people in those communities to know this is your neighborhood, so it's always been your neighborhood. And so if whatever we're bringing in is for your benefit. So I wonder if there's that aspect as well, because I would see with the kids, like, guys, like this is your campus, this is your school, this is your neighborhood. Yeah. Feel free to roam. And I wanted to see those kids feel like they were part of that. Even if it wasn't something that they even wanted, this is still your neighborhood. This is a park that you can use. These are resources that are here for you. And you'd be surprised how many people never took advantage of that. And I think that's a shame. And
that sense of ownership is crazy because like it's truly empowering when I'll give you an example. Like when I went to boarding school in the Middle East.
Oh wow, that's different.
But did part of my high school in Damascus, in Syria.
Wow, Syria.
And I always
how was Syria at that point in time? What years is this?
Peaceful. Like this is 99.
You see, we have such different concepts of what we think. I think of Syria, I think of war torn. I think of like Syria refugees. Actually, those are the words that come to mind. Not boarding school.
Syria was like, I want to say the Paris. That was more like Lebanon. It wasn't the Paris in the Middle East. It was like the Lithuania. It's like it was just like you can come there and have a good time. Like,
how'd you end up out there? I gotta hear that.
Man, that's a long story.
Okay, cool.
I'm more than happy, to talk about. But essentially, I didn't know what I had like growing up, right? So like in my mind, growing up, the narrative, and not necessarily from my parents, but just the narrative that you kind of learn, like that narrative that you talked about with those boys not going to Columbia campus, is that, like maybe I grew up in a rough area, I grew up in a poor area, and I'm poor, and I'm rough, and that's what it is, right? Whereas at a young age, I got a chance to go and live in a different country, right? And realize that none of that minutia ever matter. Everybody just like, oh, you're from America. Everybody always thought I was so rich. Right. Which was hilarious to me.
I'm like, I'm broke.
I'm broke. But I'm actually rich over here.
Right.
In this country, right? But I'm actually, in my mind, I'm like, I'm broke. And so then like as a teenager, when I came back, it wasn't that, before I was like, hey, I came from the poor side of town. Like I grew up rough. When I came back, I was like, I grew up on the poor side of town in one of the richest cities in the world. And that framing allowed me to feel like the whole world, the entire country was mine, and therefore the whole world was mine, where there's ownership in this. Like, but the overall, like, what's the overall narrative? What's the overall framing, right, of who we are?
Right, exactly.
That's what empowers people, that story. Now maybe that's the answer, right?
Right.
Maybe they didn't go to that Whole Foods because they just weren't empowered.
Right. No, and it's funny. I'm having this conversation, and I've traveled the world, not as a boarding student, but as an adult. And I would go to places like South Africa. I go to places like France and meet like other Black people.
Yeah.
And they look at you like, wow, you're American.
It's like, oh man, exactly. You made it.
Exactly. And so when I came back after traveling, in my 20s and 30s, I also had a different perspective.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my friend last week, and I was like, look, bro, I get it. We have a lot of issues.
Yeah.
But we happen to live in the richest country in the history of the world. And so we have to, whatever we can do it, right? And we have to try to do it. Like I was talking to a friend last night. I was like, bro, like if you have credit, take that credit card and he's a comedian and just just film a comedy special, right? On a credit card. Yeah. Because you get credit here, right? You can't get credit
this is
overseas.
America.
Right, exactly. And just bet on yourself.
Like you can't.
And if it doesn't work out, file for bankruptcy, right? Like, but bet on yourself. Take advantage of the fact that you live in this place. But again, it's about ownership and saying, oh yeah, I can do that. I can do this.
Yeah.
I can have this conversation. I can talk about technology, even though when I look at the faces, they don't look like me. I can talk about medicine, even though we may be underrepresented, because guess what? We have the ball. We have the culture. We have it in our hands. We're here. And we got to take advantage. We got to, whatever we got, whatever cards we've been dealt, we got to play it. And you started playing the cards that you were dealt. You came back, was like, okay, I'm a Chicago resident.
Yes, I'm not. Right. I'm not like a Chicago Cretan.
You're human.
This is one of the richest places on earth.
Exactly.
And that's what starts to empower you when you take that narrative and say, hey, I'm bullish on America.
Right. Exactly.
Let's go. Like
exactly.
You can't. I like much like you. There's a lot of traveling that I've done. Like you can't tell me that this is the worst place in the world.
Right.
Even when it's people that look like us,
right,
that are like, oh, it's so bad. I'm like, fool, you don't have a burlap sack on.
Right. Exactly.
You're not a slave.
Right. Exactly.
You're not Chicken George.
Right. Exactly.
And actually, you're being very disrespectful to our ancestors
who worked so hard,
who actually were slaves. Who actually did go through things that we don't love to talk about, but they went through them. So when I hear blacks saying, "Hey, yeah, this is the worst it's ever been." What?
No.
Are you a slave?
Right.
Wait, what? This is not the worst it's ever been. And if you think that, I don't have much to say to you. We don't have anything in common. I'm sorry, because it means you're blind. You can't see all the opportunity that was created for you.
Right.
By the way.
Right. And that's, I tell people this. When I went to NY, I was an MLK scholar, the Martin Luther King scholar. And when I went to Columbia, I was actually the Malcolm X scholar.
That's
right?
so black.
That's dope, right? Dope as hell. And I remember I wrote an article on weathering. And the article basically, the concept of weathering is basically black people, especially black women, age faster than they should because of racism. Mm-hmm. And one of the best quotes in 1962 came from Malcolm X, where he talks about the black woman is the most disrespected person in America. And I wrote the quote and I just paused because it was like, whoa, this just went political, right? With my Substack. But then I remembered that it was Malcolm X's wife, Betty Shabazz, who after Malcolm X passed away, he actually passed away across the street from Columbia Presbyterian, which is the teaching hospital for Columbia Medical School. Years later, she came back and she took money and she provided that money so that black students like myself can go to Columbia. And that's why I'm the Malcolm X scholar, because of Betty Shabazz, the wife of Malcolm X. And so I kept the quote because I was like, man, I'm going to honor both Malcolm X, but also Betty Shabazz, because they worked so hard and she took her family money and invested in someone like myself. So when I had a chance to open a clinic in Baldwin Hills, when I get a chance to have my podcast called La Vie, which means, life in Haitian Creole, I'm going to push that agenda, right? Because I'm standing on the shoulders of giants,
totally.
Right? And so, there's a lot of stuff going on, but I have to honor the Betty Shabazzes, the MLKs, and the Harriet Tubmans, and the Frederick Douglasses, and the Nat Turners, and so the Toussaint Louverture's that came before us, and take that baton and carry it on to the next generation. Like, to move the conversation forward, and not just feel defenseless, and not just feel like nothing's gonna change, not feel like you can't, like you're not empowered. It's like those kids, like, no, bro, like you are empowered. This is your neighborhood. This is our time. This is our moment. And so we're going to stretch ourselves and we're going to use all the tools that have been provided to us in order to better ourselves, our families, and the neighborhoods and the communities that we're a part of. I talk about purpose. Like, what is your purpose? My purpose is to help people live long enough to find their purpose and to go out and do it. That's my purpose. My purpose is to help people, is to help you, give you some tools, give you some knowledge that you're going to take and you're going to live to 100. So that on your 75th birthday when I'm there, you just won a Pulitzer Prize. I'm like, bro, you finally won the, man, they finally gave you the Pulitzer, bro. Right? I want to be there. When my homegirl gets an Oscar, like at 62, man, they was hating on you. You should have won it 5 years ago, but you got the Oscar today. Yeah. Right? And so I want people to live out their purpose. And the best thing I can do is teach people how to live long lives that have meaning. And making them realize like, no, bro, like you're 45, you're 46, but there's so much more. And how can I help you get to that point? Because that's where I want to get everybody to. That's my purpose. And so, we stand on those giants, so we can't just say, oh, no, we can't do anything and we're lost.
It's disrespectful.
Exactly.
It's very disrespectful. It's disrespectful to you or to your heritage.
Right, exactly.
To not take advantage and not be bullish about what they all suffered for, what they all worked for, not just because it's not always pain. Also, right. Like sometimes they just worked really hard.
Right, exactly.
That's what previous generations are supposed to do. That's what we're supposed to do for the next generation of Americans.
Right.
No, man, this has been good, man. Where can people find you?
Man, so on Substack, it's called Lahvie, Lahvie. It stands for Life in Haitian Creole. And then on Instagram, Lahvie, Lahvie. I'm on Instagram as well. And now I have a podcast. It's audio, right? Let's go. It can find on Apple and Spotify. It's just called the Lahvie Podcast with Dr. Ladouceur. And every week I'm just talking about issues that affect us and how we can better ourselves. Yeah. And come on platforms like this and just keep pushing the agenda, right?
Absolutely. We'll definitely put that in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Man, I'm happy about your podcast.
Thank you.
You're very knowledgeable. You're very passionate.
Thank you.
You know what's going on.
Right.
I can't believe we haven't had this
conversation.
Never
met. Right, exactly. Met. Right.
And everybody would say, like, Amos, go talk to Amos.
Right.
Talk to Amos. Right. Be like, yeah, I don't know when I'm going to LA.
I was in hiding. Yeah. Like I said, like that journalist, she really thought it was important for me to get the word out. And when I finally was ready and I called that number and I heard that, I was like, okay, it's time for me to do something different.
It's never too late. And you're probably at the place where you need to be.
Right, exactly.
Psychologically, like physically, like you're probably at the place. You're where you need to be to make
the time is now.
Yeah,
exactly. Timing is everything.
Timing is everything, man. So many times we attempted to do things, or we yearn, or we secretly hope for that we would get the things that we wanted, but it wasn't the right time.
It wasn't the right time. Yeah, timing is everything.
Yeah, man.
All right, brother. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me.
It's been so good.
I wish you the best. I love what you're doing. I want to give you your flowers. As someone who's trying to get into this space, just the professionalism, just the passion, just seeing you go out and investing in yourself and in this business, but also on this platform, I was like, this is somebody I need to follow in his footsteps and learn from him. So I want to tell you what you're doing is great. And I hope more people are going to see what you're doing and that you have a bigger and bigger platform, brother.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I really do. Yeah. I really do. I really appreciate you taking your time to come on. I mean, like that.
Exactly.
So, thanks, bro.
Yeah. All right, brother. Yeah. Thank you, man.
All right.